Right, okay. I think too hot for the UK, yes, Sue. Right, I think I'm gonna get started and then people can join as we go. So welcome today to our talk. So I'm just gonna get some things off the screen because I can't see everything. How long is the meeting? It will be about an hour and 15 minutes. That was what we put in the information. Oh, I can't get this off the screen. And if we go over, we might go over, but obviously you can just go off if you need to go off, and you will be getting a recording. So, welcome everyone to Better Breathing for Horse and Human. And the purpose of this webinar today is for myself and for Claire, who's online with us. So some of you might be able to see her if you want to give him a wave, Claire. Is to share our passion for breathing correctly for both horses and humans. And really, it's because of Claire and my horses that I came across this work. So I'm very grateful to both of them because I do believe it literally saved my life. Um, my breathing was extremely poor when I started, so I was very passionate about improving it when I saw all the improvements I was having, and I actually went out to train to become a coach in what's called the Buteyko method. So I'm going to be starting the talk today talking about human breathing. Could the way you be breathing be affecting your health? I'll be going for about 25 minutes, hopefully. And then Claire will be taking over to talk about equine breathing, how she's adapted these techniques to help horses. She did that about 30 years ago now. And then we'll be having a Q&A at the end. So if you do have any questions as we go along, please make a note of them. You can put them in the chat and we can maybe go back to them, hopefully won't miss them, or just jot them down. And we might answer them as we go along. And as you've probably seen, we are recording this. So recording will be made available. We'll email the link out to that tomorrow. And you're going to be able to share that with friends if you feel it might be something they're interested in. When you signed up, you did see a disclaimer, and just to reiterate that if you do have a health concern, you should consult a qualified doctor or veterinarian regarding yourself or your horse. Okay, so just a little bit about myself, first of all, and how I came to this work. This is one of my horses. This is my first horse, Sarafina. I rescued her adopted her from a rescue, and she had been there for about 2 years. She was kind of unwanted because she was potentially non-ridden, and she had a lot of issues, a lot of behavioral issues. She was sort of marked down as dangerous, and I decided that she was the horse for me. Well, she actually chose me, actually. So we had quite a difficult start, and about a year later, I decided she needed a permanent companion, and along came my second horse, Aloha. And just one day, I was stood in the field with them, and there was an issue going on with Safi, and I was stood there worrying about her, just churning over in my mind, worry, worry, worry. And Safi just sent me these 4 words that would just focus on yourself. And they're probably some of the best, that's the best piece of advice I think anyone could be given, really, because the only thing I can control is myself. And so what I've been doing, I've been putting all this focus on my horses. I want to make sure they're happy, I want to make sure they're healthy, have a great home, etc., etc. But some of that was actually to the detriment of my health and well-being. So I was kind of neglecting myself. So I feel like Safi was reminding me here that you need to focus on yourself and focus on your healing because that's just as important. So it took several years for me working on myself, peeling back layers, as you might hear in the healing world, people say. And I kind of got to a point where I felt like nothing seems to be getting better, and I actually feel like I'm getting worse. And what happened was the sort of missing piece was kind of sticking out like a sore thumb. And that's when I came across Clare's website where she talked about Buteyko breathing. And now I came across it for my horses, but as I was reading it, I was like, oh, have that issue and I do that and I do that. And I was reading other books about Buteyko and realizing that actually I have really poor breathing habits as well. So that's kind of, it was really enlightening to me, and I started to focus on that on myself first. So let's talk then about the importance of breathing, which might seem really obvious. So for us humans, we can go for about 3 weeks without eating. We can go for about 3 days without water, but we can only go for around 3 minutes for average people without
Mm.
breathing. And you might remember, so that kind of just shows to us it's quite extremely vital that we breathe. You may remember this pyramid from, I don't recall when I first saw it. It might have been at school or at university, I'm not sure. It's called Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and it's basically a concept that physical needs must be met first before a person can focus on higher level goals like personal growth and self-fulfillment. So the base represents these physiological needs. It's in the red, and it's the widest because they kind of support everything above them. And as you can see, hopefully you can see, one of the things we have here is breathing. So breathing can actually be affected by or affect all of the other things in that physiological needs section. So, for example, what we eat might affect how we breathe. Whether we have a safe home to live in will affect how we breathe, whether we feel stressed or not. So, in a way, maybe breathing should have one all of its own right at the bottom, supporting everything else. Because if we have poor breathing, could we actually be reaching our full potential? So we've talked about the importance of breathing, but have we ever really considered the way we are breathing, how we are breathing? Because I know I definitely hadn't, and I hadn't really seen it talked about a lot. This gentleman here is Dr. Buteyko, and in the early 1950s in Russia, he'd not long graduated as a doctor, and he was working in a hospital with very sick patients. And what he was able to do was recognize, excuse me, almost predict the day or to the hour as when they might pass away because their breathing would change. Now, you might have heard of this if you've been unfortunate enough to have a loved one in hospital. I think nurses may say this to people to kind of prepare them. People's breathing has changed. But what Dr. Buteyko decided to do was ask the question, was it their sickness that was causing the poor breathing, or was it their poor breathing that was contributed to their sickness? So that's interesting. And he went on to to research this, and he noticed that a lot of people were breathing too much. So people were breathing too many breaths per minute, they were breathing too much air per breath, and we call this hyperventilation or overbreathing. So breathing in excess of your metabolic requirements, which will cause a lowering of carbon dioxide. So under normal breathing conditions, the blood will contain the maximum amount of O2. Can't take in any more O2. So if we're breathing more, we're not going to be taking in any more oxygen. And what happens is, if we breathe more, it will have the opposite effect because if we're breathing faster, our lungs are removing more CO2 from our body, and CO2 is actually a very beneficial gas. It's not just a waste product of metabolism. Our body needs carbon dioxide, so it is very important. So if we're breathing out too much CO2, it will decrease CO2 in our blood, which is needed to regulate our breathing. And CO2 if it's decreased, will cause oxygen to bind more to our hemoglobin. So oxygen won't actually go to tissues. So the more we are breathing, the less oxygen is going to be going delivered to our tissues. So CO2 is a good gas, that we need to remember that. So on this table here, we've got a comparison of breathing patterns. At the top, normal. So inverted commas, this is just an average. It could be different for different people, it can be different for men and women. But on average, a respiratory rate, so breaths per minute of around 12. Tidal volume is the amount of air we breathe in and out in one breath. So that is usually around half a litre, 500 mils. And then if we multiply those, we get 6 litres. So 6 litres per minute going in and out of our body. Now, if we go to the other end of the spectrum, having a panic attack, if you've seen someone have a panic attack, or maybe you've had a panic attack, we know we take lots and lots of breaths per minute. We might be taking in lots more air. And so that multiplied would be 30 litres of air per minute, which is obviously a huge deal more. But a lot of people, and this is obviously what Dr. Buteyko found that there's this in-between state of overbreathing, called overbreathing or chronic hyperventilation. So our respiratory rate is higher. We might be breathing in and out more than we should. So our minute volume, as you can see there, is over double what it should be. And we've already talked about breathing too much air is not good for you, as it will lower the CO2 in your body, which is helping to regulate your breathing, amongst other things. This chart here is, oh, sorry, Zoe, I see you've got your hand up. We're going to take questions at the end. So if you just want to save that till then, or we might answer it as we go. Okay, so this chart here is estimated number of people overbreathing. So this was extrapolated from data by Dr. Artur Rakimov, who worked with Dr. Buteyko. And on the vertical column, we've got minute volume, so litres per minute. And along the bottom is the date. So it starts around 1930s and goes up to 2000. And you can see that there has been quite a dramatic increase, like a doubling of the minute volume. And that happened around end of 1980s, early 1990s. So the scientist in me thinks, well, what happened during that time? I just hypothesize we started eating more junk food, maybe with microwave meals and fast food chains and that kind of thing. And also the internet sort of kicked off around early 1990s. It probably didn't for me because I'm always behind with technology. But yeah, so that makes our life more sedentary. Maybe people were sitting down at computers more. So that maybe could have influenced it. Okay, so why might we overbreathe or continue to overbreathe? So one sort of major factor is stress. Stress will naturally cause our breathing rate to change. We'll breathe faster, we'll breathe harder, we'll breathe in the upper chest. We're kind of preparing our body for fight or flight. But when the stress goes away, we should return to normal. But if we're having a period of chronic stress, maybe a massive project at work, tight deadlines, all that kind of thing, school even, actually thinking about it, school for me was a stress. That chronic stress can cause you to stay in that kind of high breathing rate a lot of the time. And it could be other things like divorce, a bad relationship, time of redundancy, things like that. Also, like I've already mentioned, our lifestyle has changed a lot. So everyone's sort of sitting down a lot more at computers. It's not good for our posture. We might be hunched over, which is going to affect our breathing. People have introduced things now like these standing desks and things like that. But that sort of lifestyle factor is definitely going to change the way we breathe. And this again is another reason why I'm thankful for my horses, because they get me moving. I have to get up and do physical jobs. So just going back to stress, actually, I was going to mention some people deal with stress dysfunctionally. So they might drink alcohol, they might overeat, comfort eat, and that will actually feed into the overbreathing. So they actually make them more stressed, and then they've got the actual stress, maybe drink more, and you kind of get into this loop. Another thing, eating junk food, processed food, that's going to contribute to poor breathing. Eating a lot of meat will. And finally, trauma. So this could be ongoing trauma, like complex PTSD. You could have had a traumatic event that could change the way you breathe. You might have been in hospital for a long period. You could have had congestion for a long time, maybe as a child. So you switched from breathing through your nose to breathing through your mouth. So all of these things could have changed the way you breathe. Um, so why might we continue to overbreathe? So we've mentioned that CO2 is a driver for breathing. So CO2 will build up in our lungs, it also builds up in our blood, and it will drive breathing. And what happens here is there's a sensor in our brain that will sense that rise of CO2, and it will get to a certain point, and then what will happen is it will tell our diaphragm to contract, and we take a breath. So when we're breathing normally, which is kind of indicated by the green here, the CO2 will rise up, then we take a breath, and it'll go on that kind of smooth and normal function. But if this sensor is disrupted, it'll kind of recalibrate itself perhaps to a lower level. And what will happen then is the CO2 rises in our blood, and then it says take a breath. So take a breath. So now we're taking more breaths because our sensor has been recalibrated to a lower level. And then if we go even further, and this can kind of happen a snowball effect. I definitely felt like this. It was like my life was just getting worse and worse and worse. And I just thought, how can things get worse? And obviously my breathing was just getting worse and worse and worse because of events that were going on. So if it goes down to sort of the red levels, then we might be taking a lot of little, fast, shallow breaths, and we're not breathing normally. So with Buteyko breath retraining, what we're doing is we're doing lots of tailored exercises to the individual to get this sensor to go back to normal. So I would definitely say mine was in the red, and I'm not going to say it's probably at the green, but I'm quite certain I'm breathing better than I ever have in my entire life because I feel that good. So, but I actually want to get it even higher. That's kind of my goal. Okay. So what does overbreathing do to the body? We have a scan here of a brain. And what this is showing is the effect of 1 minute of voluntary hyperventilation on brain oxygen levels. So as you can see there, on the hyperventilation side, we've reduced the oxygen levels. Now that's voluntary, okay? So I was hyperventilating most of my life, so my brain wasn't getting the oxygen it needed. And, I would definitely feel this, memory loss, focus, concentration, all those kinds of things were going on for me, and they've improved vastly since improving my breathing. And the reason for this is because you mentioned about reducing the CO2 in the body because we're breathing too much out, cause blood vessels to constrict, so reducing the blood flow to the brain. The oxygen is held on by the hemoglobin, so even when the blood gets there, it won't kind of disembark and go to its destination. Also, we have changes in the blood pH levels, and it will excite nerves and muscles. So this is where the kind of worry and anxiousness comes from because our nerves are excited. And all of these things can then obviously, if they continue, so with the chronic that we've talked about, so they're continuing over a long period of time, can contribute to health issues. So, some signs and symptoms of poor breathing in people. You might breathe through your mouth. So, we always want to be breathing through our nose. That's what it was designed for. So, something to think about. You might feel breathless easily during mild activities. You might sigh or yawn frequently. You might feel tired and lack energy during the day. I don't know what that is. That's okay. Right. Where are we? Snore or have disrupted sleep. Wake up feeling unrefreshed. You might breathe higher in the chest rather low in the diaphragm. Feel anxious, tense, or easily stressed. Find it difficult to lose weight, or you might overeat. A bit of both. You might have muscle tension you cannot relieve. Something I had, it was always in the shoulders here, like upper chest, because I was using these muscles to breathe too much. So I just couldn't get rid of this tension. I'd be doing yoga every day, massages. I'm like, I can't get rid of the tension. Why? When I think about these things, I think about our horses, like how are they feeling if they're also over breathing? So it's an interesting journey to go on for both of you. You might have difficulty concentrating. You might have poor circulation or cardiovascular issues. You might have a poor memory. You might overthink a lot. So there is a test you can actually do to test how well you're breathing at rest. We're not going to do it now because it might distract everybody, but I'm going to send it in the link afterwards. So if you're interested in doing it, you'll be able to do that. Okay, so conditions over breathing can contribute to. We've talked about fatigue. This is a big one. Your energy levels. People get chronic fatigue, ME, and I'm pretty certain I had chronic fatigue, but no one ever diagnosed me. I couldn't really do a lot in the day. Just barely look after my horses. Um, and it's likely that there's not enough oxygen getting to your cells. You're breathing muscles more, so that's making you feel drained. Your nervous system's on high alert, that's making you feel drained. All of these symptoms are reinforcing each other. You might not be sleeping well, so then that makes you feel more tired, and you might feel like, oh, I've got 10 hours sleep but I still feel tired, and you may not be sleeping well because your breathing isn't great as you sleep, so you don't get that deep restful sleep. We have, and just an example here is you might, not have enough energy to do all the great things you plan with your horse. You might barely find the energy just to do the basic chores around the yard. This was something that I struggled with. And then on top of that, you might find going to work difficult because you're tired, but you've got to earn money to pay for your horse, and you're kind of in this cycle of sort of stress and fatigue. Other things, mental health conditions, rumination of the mind, because that CO2 is causing that reduced blood flow to the brain and reduced oxygen. So you might suffer from things like worrying, overthinking, depression, anxiety, focus and concentration, and memory. I know I had all of these things, and when my horses were on livery, the yard owner would call and say to me, uh, everything's fine, Kate. She wouldn't even say hello because I would just instantly worry, thinking something had happened to my horses. So I see a lot of posts about people just worrying, sat at home about their horses. Are they okay? And really, it's like we shouldn't get horses just to worry about them because worrying is tiring. We're supposed to enjoy them, enjoy our time together. Okay, other things, weight gain. If we overbreathe, it's going to alter our metabolism and it's going to disrupt our hormones, and it can contribute to hormonal things like diabetes, disrupt our menstrual cycle in women, uh, thyroid issues, for example. I always had issues with my weight. I did every diet you've ever thought of, probably ever since I was about 13, 14. But then with retraining my breathing, I've lost over 2 stone, and not intentionally. I didn't go, oh, I'm on a diet now. My diet preferences changed. I was always a sugar addict, chocoholic, and that's gone away now too. So that's very interesting and a great benefit. And because I'm more active as well, that contributes to losing weight. Some other issues here, cardiovascular issues, poor circulation. I had terrible circulation. I would freeze in the winter around my horses. My hands were cold, my feet were cold, and it would just affect the time I spent with them because I just couldn't be out for as long because it just felt unpleasant. High blood pressure. This was something that Dr. Buteyko had. He was his first patient, and he managed to get his blood pressure back down to normal with his techniques. And then we also have things like asthma and allergies. I think Claire might touch on those a little bit more with horses. And then finally, this is just something I'm passionate about. You don't really see this sort of written in the literature about Buteyko, but for me, I've really found that the changes that I've seen in myself have really helped my horses. And I believe that's because you're able to get kind of reconnected to your authentic self, reconnect to your intuition, and it allows for that, great relationship with your horse, as well as accessing what some people call flow states, where you're just so in the present moment and you're so at peace and everything is kind of flowing and going great. So that's a really great thing to think about with improving your breathing. So, just some takeaways for you before I pass over to Claire. Getting hot in here now. Um, just awareness. Maybe have a think about how you're breathing after this talk. Just that awareness, excuse me, of how you're breathing can bring about effective change. You might just change the way you're doing things. Switch to nasal breathing. It sounds so simple, but it's really profound. Next time you're pushing your muck barrow across the field, when it's full to the brim, are you breathing through your nose or are you breathing through your mouth? And where you can, try and change that. And even that in itself would just work, do a lot of good for you. This is a really great exercise if you want to start kind of retraining your breathing, walking with nasal breathing. So you're letting your nose guide the pace. You walk as fast as you can without needing to breathe through your mouth. So your nose is kind of leading the way there. And if you feel like your breathing is quite poor, you just start with these things, just short, 5-10 minutes, nothing, you don't need to go, epically on hikes and things like that. And like I said, I'll send you a page to assess your own breathing if you're interested. And then if you do start implementing any of these things, do you notice any changes in yourself, in your horse? Do you notice you have more energy? Do you feel more at peace? Does your horse feel calmer? So those things are really interesting to notice. With my horses, I mean, all three of us are all so sensitive that our changes have been ever so slight, but ever so profound as well. And, it's interesting because as a society, we feel like we need a massive, pay loads of money. I paid loads of money for my healing, which I look back and think, why did I do that? These things are so simple that I could have helped my health and had profound changes without needing to do that. Because as we've established, breathing underpins everything. So if we get that right, can everything else fall into place? Doesn't mean we might not need the chiropractor or the masseuse or the osteopath, but we might only need 1 or 2 sessions instead of 10 or 15. So that's kind of great, I think. And if you're interested in looking at your breathing patterns further, I work with people for a free connection call if you just want to have a chat about your breathing patterns and if working with someone would be useful. I see it as a bit like a personal trainer. I'm working with you to improve your breathing habits. I do a breathing assessment and reset plan. That's 1 session, so you can go away with some tips to improve your breathing. Or if you want more intensive support over a period of time, if your breathing is quite poor, I offer a course over 3 months. Okay, well, thank you for listening to my part of the talk. And now I'm going to pass over to Claire, hopefully, who is going to talk about equine breathing with horses.
Hello.
Hello, Claire. Have
I'll see if I can share my screen smoothly. Share sound. No, nothing's happened.
I can see your screen.
Oh, you can. Oh, good. Yes. Okay. Right. Let's. Thank you for being here, and I'm delighted to be able to talk to you about equine breathing. Equine breathing heals chronic ailments and behavioral problems. It calms and relaxes horses, and it's simple to do. Almost anyone can do it, and no veterinary procedures or drugs are involved. It's a training that improves the breathing, which enables the physiology to start to recover. The horse heals her or himself. We don't need to know or understand the symptoms. It's not a treatment for specific symptoms. Equine breathing works because overbreathing has a direct and damaging effect on the physiology. The body can compensate for this damage, but eventually the physiology becomes so compromised that it can no longer function adequately to maintain health, and symptoms arise. One of the main reasons overbreathing is so damaging has to do with carbon dioxide. People tend to think of carbon dioxide as, let me just see if I can, oh dear. Sorry, I've got a bit missing off my screen. Can't move it, no. Oh, there we are. People think of carbon dioxide as a greenhouse gas, but plants use carbon dioxide to grow, well, plants, and would not exist without it. Neither would we. Even less well known is the vital role carbon dioxide plays in our own physiology. We've just heard about that from Kate. Without it, we would not survive the damaging effects of the oxygen we rely on as fuel. Oxygen is a very effective fuel, but it has a downside. It is a nasty, reactive chemical, breaking down into free radicals that damage our cell walls and DNA. We only survive this thanks to antioxidants. Not for nothing do the antioxidants form one of the main pillars of the integrative health movement. You know, eat your greens, superfoods, berries, and so on. And it's long been known that carbon dioxide is our chief antioxidant defense. Back in the 1800s, Swiss physiologist Friedrich Miescher said, over the oxygen supply of the body, carbon dioxide spreads its protecting wings. But beyond this, also crucial to health, is that it's carbon dioxide that makes oxygen sufficiently available for use by the cells of the body. It doesn't end there. Carbon dioxide performs many other functions that are also crucial to health and indeed to life itself, and which affect every cell in the body. Here are just some of the effects. You can ask me about these later, or you can look at the Equine Breathing website, and of course, Kate has already mentioned them. But the body loses carbon dioxide from the lungs, just like carbonated drinks lose their fizz when open to the air. In healthy breathing, the body makes enough carbon dioxide to replace this loss. But in overbreathing, the loss exceeds production, so levels fall. And as we've heard from Kate again, far from being a waste gas, carbon dioxide is one of the body's main regulators. Low levels cause disruption and damage. And here's this example again of lack of oxygen to the brain. In this human brain scan, the bright areas show high oxygen availability on the left, and the dark areas show insufficient oxygen. In this case, the oxygen availability to the brain in normal breathing on the left is reduced by 40% as a direct result of about a minute of voluntary overbreathing. For good reasons, overbreathing is common in horses. I just walked along a row of boxes on a well-run yard where horse welfare is a priority and saw these. All these horses were in normal work. Their breathing was not considered to be abnormal. Note the enlarged nostrils that move with each inhale and exhale. In more healthy breathing, we can't distinguish between the in and the out breath because the nostrils don't flare and the breathing is silent. Healing due to better breathing might be expected to be small or mild, but no, I'm talking about healing that can be life-changing and sometimes even life-saving. Here are some examples. Delilah, an event horse, unrideable due to head shaking. Vets had advised euthanasia. She recovered and was able to compete again. Same story for show jumper Sammy in France. Severe head shaking, euthanasia advised, recovered to compete again. Here's Emmy, who recovered from a chronic skin condition and crashing falls from sleep deprivation and narcolepsy. This is part of Tracy's video celebrating Kite's recovery from constant 24/7 head shaking, COPD, and severe muscle pain and weakness. Even Kite's heart murmur reduced to mild. Tracy was able to train and ride him. Upton, another French show jumper, this time with vet-diagnosed unrecoverable emphysema. Everyone was delighted that he recovered to compete again. And look at this Italian show jumper, D'Orlando, who recovered from windsucking. A Dutch young rider international event mare who had ulcers and couldn't eat when at competitions. She regained her appetite and also gained fitness as measured by recovery times after the cross-country phases. Sue's best stock horse, Oscar, in Australia, was retired in his teens due to asthma. He recovered and was able to go back to work for another 10 years. Amanda in Canada was so excited to buy her first horse when she was 50. But Georgia developed severe breathing difficulties and was unrideable. She recovered with equine breathing, and Amanda was able to enjoy her dream of 2-day trail rides. Sam's sarcoids disappeared, as did his cow phobia, and we all know how scary cows can be. Two sister mares in the US. Their mother was euthanized due to breathing issues, leaving Josa orphaned and sickly. With repeated infections and colic, she was too ill to be even started under saddle. Older sister Mina had breathing issues. Both were allergic to over 30 allergens and on constant immunotherapy and steroids. The vet thought they had bad genes. Both recovered and Josa could be backed and is here on a trail ride with a happy Stephanie. Paulina in Netherlands tried to train her green young Akkeltek, but Derrickly became more and more spooky and really dangerous to handle. He was unable to focus and had times of complete panic. With equine breathing, Paulina was at last able to progress his training and start riding him. His intense itchiness disappeared, and even the string halt in one hind leg became unnoticeable. Paulina said, "Even if you think your horse's condition is not curable, you need to give equine breathing a try. You'll be amazed at the difference it can make for your horse." I'm going to run through now how you can start equine breathing with your horse using the free 1N or 1 nostril method, which is easy to learn and simple to do and requires no equipment. Almost anyone can do it. So 1N can be used on any symptom, and it's gentle, so it's a slower rate of healing, which is good when you first start healing a horse. But it shows the effect of improving the breathing, and horses enjoy it. So here's a clip from the free video on the website, which explains how to do 1N. First session, bring your horse to a safe place where they feel relaxed and you will not be disturbed. Ideally, they'll have their friends nearby. Make sure you have enough time and are not feeling rushed. Make your horse comfortable if necessary with fly spray, and cool them with a fan or cold shower if it's hot. Stand by the left-hand side of your horse so that you can comfortably reach your horse's nostril, but not too close. Face nearly the same direction as them. Make sure that your feet are facing more forwards than towards the horse's feet, in case he or she steps forward. Don't fiddle with your horse. Go straight and directly to the 1N position, which is to put your left hand over the horse's left nostril and completely block all airflow. You should feel suction on the in-breath and pressure on the out-breaths. If your hand is not completely covering the nostril, you will feel less suction and pressure. Move your hand to block the whole nostril and feel the suction and pressure. The horse's breathing may sound louder. If your horse moves their head, follow the movement with your hand. Try not to let your hand slip off, as you will lose some of the precious carbon dioxide that you are collecting. So it will take longer for your horse to feel the benefit. Check that your arm is relaxed so that you don't get tired, and that your other arm is not tense holding the lead rope. Keep a nice smile in the line if possible. Tension in your body will make it harder for your horse to let go and enjoy the 1N. Horses often lower their heads as they relax. Don't lean in over their heads, as they may start in their sleep and knock your face by mistake. Crouch down instead, for safety. Keep your hand in position for 5 minutes. Now move to the right side, check your own position, and then again, without hesitating, go straight to your horse's right nostril and keep your hand there for 5 minutes. Do this set of 10 minutes of 1N in other words, 5 minutes on each nostril, at least once and preferably 3 times a day. You can do the full 30 minutes in one session if you wish, or you can split the sessions through the day. Here's a recap of the basic instructions. Choose a place where your horse feels safe and relaxed, ideally near friends. And have plenty of time. Cover the left nostril completely for 5 minutes. Cover the right nostril completely for 5 minutes. Repeat this 10-minute set 3 times a day. Do 30 minutes total in 1, 2 or 3 sessions each day. And as I say, this is available on the website, the more complete set of instructions, both written and video. So what you will see during and after 1N sessions are signs of relaxation, sleepiness, yawning, lowering of the head. The horse may even lie down and sleep. The horse may cough, shake, snort, pee, poop, or drop, and so on. Now, obviously, the main aim is for the horse to heal and recover their health. But I find the healing process very interesting in itself. Each horse follows their own individual healing process. One feature of this is often stretching. Here are some variations as demonstrated by my off-the-track thoroughbred mare. So yawning and licking and chewing are very common, and I think a lot of people will see these. There are also more complex stretches involving the legs, the neck, and the jaw and tongue, and any part of the body, really. Here she is maneuvering herself very precisely in order to give herself a static stretch using the slope on her pelvis. And she could go, any horse can go from completely conked out 1 second into a stretch in the next second. She did lots of these cat stretches from the beginning of her healing process. And after a few months, she started adding in dog stretches as well. And I'll let you listen to this one for the sound effects. And this one looks like she's been eating. She hasn't been eating anything. She hasn't eaten for ages. She's just working her jaw in some kind of stretch. Really, any part of the body can be stretched in some way. And some horses like to be active and move and stretch while they're doing the 1N, which could be mistaken for them just fidgeting. But you may have heard Jim Masterson say that some horses need to fidget before they can release. And some horses might fidget on the spot like this mare. Some horses might want to walk quite fast while they do the 1N. So it's a good idea to go with them. So for people who found that 1N is effective, there are breathers available because not everyone can find time to do one in. So a breather is a more powerful and efficient way of doing equine breathing once you know that equine breathing is effective for your horse. The website covers all aspects of equine breathing. It's on a computer and there are pages in German, French, Czech, Italian and Dutch, as well as obviously the English pages. From the welcome page, you can go straight to the free instructions for 1N or find out more about all sorts of aspects of equine breathing. And here's what the welcome screen looks like on a phone, and you can see the menu topics there. There's also, if you click the full instructions, you will get full details of how to do 1N in both written and video forms and articles and so on. And again, here it is on a phone. There's also more information on the Clare Frost Equine Breathing Facebook page. But please remember that equine breathing is not a substitute for veterinary care. If you have any concerns, you should seek professional advice from a vet. And those are my contact details. And I'm always happy to hear from people and help them get started or help them with questions. Equine breathing is quite simple in some respects, but the healing process can be quite unexpected and unusual. And that's me finished, really. So I shall stop sharing. And there we are.
Thank you so much, Claire. That was really great. I don't know about anyone else, but I got a little bit emotional when you were talking about those horses that you were giving as an example. So just
Oh.
amazing that they can go back to living great lives. Um, does anyone have any questions either for myself with regards to humans or for Claire in regards to horses? You can either put them in the chat. I don't think I saw any come through so far, or put your hand up. I don't know how you. Well, I'll figure that out if it happens. Um, Anyone have any questions? Okay, I can't
Hi,
see.
sorry.
Oh, hello.
Sorry, I couldn't quite work out how to put my hand up or
Oh,
type.
no problem.
Okay, ladies, really, really interesting. As somebody that suffers from asthma, yeah, very, very useful. I'm also an equine body worker, and so I do sort of work with quite a lot of horses who, particularly during the spring in the UK with all the pollen, have had breathing difficulties along with other sort of symptoms. Is it still okay to be able to use this technique if the horse is actually sort of an asthma sufferer and using inhalers?
Yes, it brings relief for a start, and people often say, should I wait until the heaving is less bad? The sooner you get started with equine breathing, the sooner the horse will start healing.
Excellent.
And usually, horses with asthma just find relief straight away as soon as you start to reduce the breathing. I know some people find that sort of counterintuitive because it's slightly different from in humans, but horses with breathing difficulties, rather than other symptoms like head shaking or ulcers. Oh no, ulcers are all right actually. Head shaking or sleep deprivation, something like that. Horses with breathing difficulties tend to find it quite easy to start. But if the horse is really severe,
Mhm.
there are various techniques that you can use that start the breathing off even more gently.
Okay.
And
Okay.
those are on the website, or just ask me directly if you're interested in that.
Okay.
One thing I would say is that any drugs or supplements, herbs, anything like that can make the healing process more difficult,
Yeah, yeah. Well,
as you
obviously
might
it's a
expect.
steroid inhaler, so yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
I mean, obviously, if they're life-saving at the time,
yeah.
the, you have to use them. But if you can do equine breathing and reduce the symptoms to the point where you can discuss with your vet how to come off the drugs, then that will speed up the healing process, probably. I mean, obviously, I can't say for certain,
Yeah.
but however, people do, most horses, or not most, but a lot of horses are on drugs, and it does still work, but you just have to bear in mind that you're asking it to do more
Mm.
than if the horse wasn't on drugs.
And I think that's just it. A lot of owners actually want a drug-free solution.
Yes, and this is it. I mean, I hope you saw that with the range of different horses and different symptoms, different types of horses, big, little, you know, um, that recover. And as I say, it can be actually life-saving.
You will certainly be going down in my notebook as people who I need to refer my clients to, because I
Um,
have found this very, very useful. So
Oh,
thank you,
that's
ladies,
wonderful,
both.
Sue. We're so glad. That's
sorry, Sue, can I just ask, did you say you suffer from asthma as well? Did you say?
Yes, I did. It's one of those. It's more of a seasonal thing, so
Right,
it
right.
can be brought on sort of. I think it tends to be a sort of fungus thing. So in the autumn with leaf mold, certainly if I do too much housework, so it's a good excuse not to do a lot of housework. Um, but yeah, and I certainly found sort of having had COVID, um, going across, because I also have hay fever. So going across the field that spring after having COVID, it was a different type of sort of breathing restriction. It was a
Right,
tightness in the chest as opposed to the wheeziness. So
right, right.
again, it's useful to know the Buteyko method, which I have heard of.
Hmm.
It's useful from a human point of view to know that that is something that could help me in the future when I get a cold. And I like the bit about, sorry, I'm taking over a bit, but
It's okay.
it's useful to know that about the nose breathing when you're walking to the mucking,
Yeah,
bring
yeah.
your horse in. Yeah, it's useful to try and think about that.
Yeah, and just to say, I was trained by Patrick McCowan, who's quite a big name in the Buteyko world. He runs Buteyko Clinic International, and he came about it because of asthma. And he kind of says if you go into a program where you want to improve your asthma, if you kind of do all the exercises you're given he kind of predicts within 3 weeks you can have a 50% reduction in your symptoms. And I think Claire's sort of said that as well with the horses, how it's reduced quite quickly. You might be interested as well. If you look on YouTube, there's a BBC documentary about Buteyko and asthma. Um, a bit like what you mentioned with horse owners and wanting a drug-free solution, they actually found in this scientific experiment that it reduced a huge amount of necessity for asthmatic drugs. Now, of course, there's some people who are not going to be too happy about that. But it is a really great solution because you don't have to be on drugs for the rest of your life.
Mm.
So,
And I know
so
certainly having spoken to the asthma nurse recently and asking how often I use my inhaler. So I have one particular inhaler which is supposed to be a preventative. And I sort of said, well, I don't use it as much at certain times of the year. And they are actually introducing a new drug now, which can be used basically sort of an as and when, as opposed to the blue salbutamol inhaler, which yes is a positive step in the right direction.
mm,
But obviously, prevention is better than cure. So
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Well, thank you so much. So, does anyone else have any questions? I don't think I've seen any come through the chat. Has anyone else maybe not figured out how to put their hand up but wants to unmute themselves and ask? If not, then maybe we might wrap up here. So thank
I
you.
would just like to say,
Oh,
Kate,
sure.
just
Yeah.
that with the horses, it's interesting. Sometimes you get an improvement after the first session. We've just got a horse out in the Czech Republic who's a show jumper, and he coughs and is very anxious. And after 3 days of one end, he stopped coughing. But there's a huge range. Sometimes the main symptom that the person is interested in, like the coughing, will take a very long time to disappear. I mean, it can be, it can be a year for, say, a head shaker, but the owner usually sees some sort of improvement within, I would say, about a week in something, even if it's not in the main symptoms. So they will see that the horse looks a bit happier or a bit calmer or eats better or something like that. So people aren't used to holistic healing because most conventional um, medicine is about affecting the symptoms. And so you tend to look at the symptoms, and people do tend to look at the symptoms. And with holistic healing, we want to look at the whole horse. And actually, energy levels and appetite and happiness are more important than the symptoms. Because another thing that's confusing is that through the healing process, some symptoms sort of return, and they're not necessarily the same as they were originally, as the original symptoms, but they're part of the healing process. So let's talk about a cough again. So you might get a horse that stops coughing, like this one in the Czech Republic, and then 2 or 3 weeks later starts coughing again, and the owner goes, "Oh no, it's not working." But it's not that. It's not that. It's just that that's part of the healing process. Coughing is a natural mechanism by which the body looks after itself. And that can be different from the original symptoms where the body is trying to look after itself but not able to get out of the loop. And that's why if you mask the symptoms with drugs, it's very difficult to know what's going on. I mean, yes, you might get rid of the symptoms. And as I say, obviously, in some cases, if the horse needs the drugs in order to stay alive or be comfortable, then that's necessary. But they're very different systems.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think you can obviously translate that to people as well, really, with the healing. And I definitely had things return, and you do think, oh my God, it's not working. But then you think back to, well, how did I feel 6 months ago? I felt like absolute rubbish, and I feel so much better. But I am having this symptom again. But I just need to persevere with what I'm doing. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so if that's all the questions, then I think we can end there. And like I said, we're going to send out an email tomorrow with the link to the recording. It'll have Claire's information and contact details as well as mine. And if you want to get in touch with us, then you can. All right. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Claire. And thank you, everyone, for joining, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone. Bye.